Welcome back. During a recent mailbag episode, we took a brief look at these 10-watt warm white LEDs, and I mentioned that in a video Big Clive put out. He said if you run these at low current, you can actually see if they're good LEDs or not, because all the individual segments inside should light up individually and equally. And we tested it out briefly and found that was not the case for these particular lights. So this was actually a pack of 5, and I'll just give you some prices briefly. A pack of 5 cost me $5.98. Now there is only 4 pictured here because I did something to one of them that we'll see in just a few minutes here. They were selling them individually for $3.49, a 2-pack for $3.98. The 5-pack again was $5.98, or you can get a 10-pack for $8.79. That included free shipping, and it was from Investia Mall on eBay. So I picked these up because the light that's actually illuminating the desk overhead that I've been using for years now is a 10-watt cool white LED that came with the transformer, or I should say power supply, and everything, that I actually just retrofitted into a lamp. I'll paint up there in a minute and show you that. But I never ran that at lower current, and after seeing what these do, I kind of want to see what that looked like, because that was one of the original 10-watt LEDs when they first started making them. And it's the same package, but I'm kind of thinking that it was a little bit of a better system. Going back to these, since I have the specs in front of me, the color temp is anywhere from 3000 to 3500 K. Again, that's warm white. The forward voltage is 9 to 12 volts DC. Maximum forward current is 900 milliamps. Of course, we're going to run that a lot lower than that right now just to do this test. It outputs 800 to 900 lumens. These are 2.5 millimeter mounting holes around the 4 corners there. They boast a 50,000 hour lifespan, but that seems like that's pretty standard for LEDs. Of course, I don't think you'll get that, honestly, if these aren't that great or anything. And the other thing to note about these LEDs is they actually contain, like I said, there are 9 elements in there. There are 3 in series, 3 in parallel. And that's basically how it dissipates the power across all those chips in there to get you the full 10 watts. And they do get nice and bright when you bring them up to their full, power potential. But the thing is like I said, when you run them at lower currents, the current rating, you'll notice that they do have that kind of an issue where not all the segments light, which means that they're not getting, one's going to take all the power and the other ones aren't lighting at all, so that one's going to wear out a little quicker than the other ones are. And who's to say what happens when you're actually running at full power. So I'm just going to put these on here. Now they are marked which side is negative, which side's positive, so you just clamp on these little leads here, and you can see it just lit up really brightly. And I'm just going to kill this one light here. And that's because the power supply just didn't have any load on it yet. I am using a switched mode power supply that's on my desk here, and that's limiting both current and voltage. So I'm just going to clip there and like that. And it's set to 9 volts, and I have the current set all the way down to nothing. So we're going to slowly pull that up. And you can see that the bottom row over here, the one in the middle isn't lighting, but the 2 outer ones are. The camera might not pick it up because it is kind of swamping out a bit, but you see if I drop it down, now it's even more pronounced, where the middle row only has 2 lit, and then the bottom row still are the same 2 that are lit, and they're just as bright. And if we go down one more, you can barely see that one in the corner just faded out a little bit. And as soon as we ramp it back up, you can see it starts doing the same thing. And I'll just briefly bring that back. We're not going to go all the way up to the 900 milliamps. That's about 50 milliamps right there. And it's quite bright. It's a nice color temperature, that's for sure. I originally mentioned back in the mailbag video that I purchased these because I wanted to add a warm white LED to the actual lamp and select back and forth between cool white or warm white. Due to the fact that I got a new video camera light, and that can do the same thing, and I figured I'd have the desk lamp also be able to match in color. But we'll take a look at another one here, and you can hear me clicking up here as I start to bring up the current. Now this one seems like it lit pretty evenly, and once again now we could see some of the segments are going out. I I'm not sure how widespread this problem is, or where even you can find better quality LEDs anymore. Seems like everyone's just selling these cheaper ones. Once you get to here, it doesn't seem bad, but a couple steps down, yep, there you get that problem again. Now I know this is, you're not using this to get light, but like I said, this is going to help maybe weed out the lesser, the lower quality ones out of the batch here, and then you could put that one in, the more high demand device like this lamp. Like I said, I've been using this lamp maybe 5 years, and I haven't had to change anything or do anything to it. It's been the same segment in there, which is really cool. Of course, you need a heatsink for these things. Here we go. Here's another one, like you can see. So this seems like this is going to be this case for all these. None of them are going to have the actual thing we're looking for, where all these segments are going to light properly. Here's another one. Yeah. So you might be asking yourself, where's the fifth one? Where's the one you were talking about earlier? Well, I modified that one a little bit to do some tests on it. If you take a look at this, and we'll just turn this back on here. This package has these bus bars on either side here, and that's where we were clamping in positive and negative to. But if you look, it's one bus bar that breaks apart into 3 smaller buses. Well, remember how I mentioned it's a series parallel? So there's actually 3 strips running in parallel with 3 LEDs in segment running this way. And I thought maybe instead of dimming this, you could actually just apply, like cut this tab off over here, or cut it into 3 segments, and then apply power individually to the individual segments and have them light separately. So there's possible things you can do with that, and I figured that's the case because that's how they do the red, green, blue LEDs. Each one's on a different leg. Unfortunately, that's not the case, and this is how I figured it out. I ended up cutting off that bracket, like I mentioned, and I soldered a wire to it, and I actually did it on the negative side because it seems like a lot of things switch on the negative side. And what ended up happening is they all lit. No matter which one of these I applied power to, they all lit. And I traced it and realized what's actually going on here is just beyond that little ring of plastic. You can see here's one that's intact. That bus bar goes back into being one bar again. So this is just for aesthetics, or maybe even heat dissipation. I don't think so. I don't know why they made it look like that, but it's one piece of metal the whole way through. In fact, if you look, you could see it's shiny in here, and that's the same piece of metal, and I should have just looked at it and known better. But I thought maybe I can go further and just snap some of the plastic back here, and just using a sharp instrument, just cut this metal and separate them into 3 pieces, and hopefully I can get the actual end where the little bond wire attaches over and literally separate it into 3 channels. Well, that didn't work. Just disturbing the little piece of plastic on the end here caused the bond wires to completely disconnect or something. I think the wire actually runs underneath this contact, and then this is pressed on top of it to hold it into place, because now that it bends away, you can see like that, I can't get it to make contacts unless I really push it down. So effectively I've kind of just killed this LED. But all that in the name of science, just to see what would happen. I do have 4 more of them, and I only intended on really needing 1 of them. I just bought extra because when one of them's $349 and 5 of them's $598, I figured, I'm going to use 1 of them in something else, I'm sure. So I just picked them up like that. But now we can know by looking at them, just they're not super expensive LEDs, obviously, and I guess I got what I paid for. But running them at full voltage and the full current rating on a big beefy heatsink sure is going to put the right light output out, so I'm not really worried about that. But what we will look at is, I'll zoom out here and show you the desk lamp. I've mentioned this in other videos, and I've shown it off, just never really did like an in-depth thing on it as such as this video. But it sits just on top of my little organizer, on top of my custom-made power supply, which is what I was using to power these LEDs temporarily. And you can see the little black base, the wood shaft, and it's all metal, and there you go. And again, that's a cool white 10 watt LED. And there's actually a old heatsink from a Dell computer in there for the it was actually for the CPU. And I'll show you some other bits that came out of this. Now, originally there was a socket in there with a regular like candle, like one of those like teardrop shaped bulbs, or like, you know, you'd put in like your fan, or you know, your overhead fan, or one of those kind of lights. I'm sure I have one in the room. I'll show, because I don't really remember the name of what they're called. And yeah, this thing's been a super bright light. It's been really awesome. I'm glad I actually did the conversion, because when I did it, I noticed a lot of the wiring inside from the heat of the incandescent bulb had actually getting really charred, and any longer, I'm afraid it would have actually caused a shock hazard, basically. So it needed to get cleaned up anyway. But you can see when it's got my permanent marker writings on there from when I actually assembled it. But as long as this thing's been in service, I mean, this thing runs 4 or 5 hours every night, at least, and longer on the weekends for sure. And it's been doing so for, like I said, probably around 5 years, if that, maybe more. And I've had zero issues with it at all. It hasn't seemed like it lost any kind of light output or anything like that. But what I'm going to do now is actually, I'm going to pull that down off where it is, and somehow we're going to try to maybe poke some little ends in here and these spots here, and try to see if we can get some power to that without having to undo everything, and see if we can individually light those segments up and see, you know, what comes of it. Here's the lamp as a whole, as best as I can get it in frame. The bottom base just has a simple on and off click switch. Once you shut this off, it completely kills all the power going to the transformer, or power supply. On the side there is an outlet over here, which is very useful. The switch doesn't activate the outlet, which is nice. This is actually considered, I'll call it a hotel light, like one of those ones that you can find on the table in any typical hotel, where you put your laptop down next to it and you would work off of it, maybe even plug it into the outlet here to charge. And in the back here is actually a phone jack, and there's actually a phone wire that runs out of this. It's actually longer than the power cord too, and it's got a nice big beefy power cord that comes out of it. And originally, you can see here's the shade, and the LED unit is just up in here with the heat sink. But originally it had this glass dome, and it sit over here, and unfortunately I can't find any of the bulbs that sit in it. Or actually, hang on a second. As I say that, I look up, and in my ceiling fan I have these, which it's the same shape, just a bigger bulb with the larger, I guess they called Edison screw end, and it just screwed in, and that little end kind of poked out of there where you can see it's open. The little threaded nuts on here actually screwed in from the top. This spot up here, you can see there's actually a screw there. And this is nice because you can angle it either way. You could tip it out. The only thing is with that big incandescent bulb sticking out like that, the light source was here, so it kind of bled everywhere. So it was constantly in the corner of your eye, and you know, you can see, even though, you know, it's pretty high up off the desk, and it is adjustable. There's nuts in the back and everything you can move, and if I pan up, you can see there's nuts along the top here. And adjusting those, you can put them into any position, and again, like I said, you can pitch it out, tip it out. But having the bulb in here and the light source back further like this, when you put it down, it tends to shade it a lot more. In fact, I'll turn that on and show you exactly what I mean. So there's on, there's off. And for 10 watts, it's definitely very bright. And I just can't stop talking about this mod in a way, because it was a very handy thing, and it's just been a great thing. And it was just a whim. I just bought the power supply. It was a kit. I got it from Shore Electronics, I remember now, quite some time ago. And it was like $2.99 shipped from China for the 2 pieces, which I thought was a steal. But I got it, and I figured, what am I going to do with it? And I just thought of this. So you can see, once I shut this back off and not swamp the camera out, just like I said, I just have it mounted in there with 4 screws. This is just a regular heat sink. This piece of metal over here and here, this is actually just a strip from an old computer case that I just used tin snips to cut out, like the inside of like a power supply or just something like that. And they're just screwed in, and that was the holes that the little cage just mounted up into. And it's in there very secure. In fact, I even used the little white sleeve over here. This is the high temperature sleeve that normally is in there when the regular AC wires are in. I pulled all the old wires out and replaced it with just red and black standard, I think like 22 gauge stranded core wire, and they just run down the length of the whole tube and everything. So it was a really easy build. But in another video, obviously, we're going to disassemble it, and I'm going to move this over, change it around, center it, do something, and set it up with the little selection switch up in here someplace where we can select between cool white or warm white, which should be pretty cool, literally, or pretty warm, depending on which one we have it set to. But right now, I'm just going to set up the power supply, and we're just going to touch that into here and see if we can light it. I'm kind of tempted to maybe undo one of the ends. I mean, this is just, I just put hot snot glue, just, you know, regular hot glue over it, just to protect the wires a little bit. But I might end up doing that just in case. I don't want to backfeed any power down to that power supply and fry it. That wouldn't be a good idea. I don't know if there's any protection on here to prevent anything like that from happening, or if it will do anything at all. But maybe just not want to chance that. So I'm going to debate whether I'm going to do that or not, and we'll get something figured out here in just a moment. Alright, we got a little bit of a temporary setup here. You can see I actually removed the negative wire and just put an alligator clip on there, and then I have a piece of wire stuck into the positive alligator clip here, and we're going to touch that little piece of metal there. And I'm going to say, I have a feeling that this is going to be a good LED, because I got this directly from the manufacturer. And like I said, it was one of the earlier ones when they first came out, so I believe it's going to be a better quality. Let's check it out. So I kind of have to do this away from the microphone here, because I got to get over there. But anyway, I'm just going to touch this here like this. We're going to turn it up and see what happens. Now, sorry for the flickering. It is a bit hard to get right in there. But as we can see, they all light up pretty evenly. Even when it's flickering on and off, you can see it's not like one's really bright and then the rest of them are not. I'm going to try lowering it down so they shut off, if I can get this to not flicker. And yeah, it may or may not show up on camera, but even as it just about to shut off, it's nice and even. Anyway, that's enough torture for that LED. So that's probably going to last me a very, very long time. I'm not sure how long the warm white counterpart's going to be, but we'll have to see once I get that in there. For the longest time, I've just had cool white light in this room. In fact, all the LED lighting in this room, between my wife's desk, my desk, and this one, is cool white. The only warm white lighting would be the actual incandescent bulbs that we still use in the ceiling fan. But, you know, for doing work and doing actual stuff on the desk, I actually prefer the cool white a lot better. But, you know, for the winter time and everything else, you know, the warmer light is a lot nicer. So it really depends on what you're doing, what you're shooting. The camera light, I could tell you, I have set about 4000K, which if you look at the front of the thing, there's actually even color between warm white and cool white. It's kind of a nice balance, and it kind of just makes everything in the room look a little nicer, especially on camera. But anyway, with that, I want to thank you for watching. If you like seeing these kind of videos and you're not a subscriber, I would appreciate if you do subscribe. You can click the link in the top left, and you can also check out the 2 videos to the right. That's also stuff that I have on my channel. And for returning subscribers, thanks for coming back, guys. I appreciate your enthusiasm on this channel, and your wonderful comments you leave are always awesome. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.